Hi, my name is Connie Hanam-Kain. I'm from Schenectady, New York. I'm the baby here today because I've had diabetes for 50 years. It's my first time coming to one of the Joslin Medalist meetings and gatherings. I never thought I would arrive at this point, and I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm actually a diabetes education nurse, an RN, and I didn't intend for diabetes to be my whole professional life, but I think God had other plans for me because I saw what people go through. I understand it, and that led me to follow the calling of becoming a diabetes nurse educator so I could help other people with diabetes, especially people with type 1 who live with what I call advanced duration. And I'm a champion for type 1 boomers, and I find it thrilling to be in a room full of so many people who are that generation and even generations before who have lived with diabetes for 50, 60, 70, 80 years. I was diagnosed in the end of 1962, beginning of 1963, Christmas. I was 8 years old, and I had been sick with the mumps in the previous month or weeks before, and I lost a lot of weight, and I ended up in the hospital. They didn't know what was wrong with me, and I overheard my mother and my grandmother talking about leukemia or anemia. I didn't know what anemia was. I knew that children died of leukemia, and I said a little prayer to God. I said, please, whatever I have, don't make me die and leave my mother, because I don't want to make her sad. It wasn't that I was afraid of dying. I didn't want my mother to be sad. So none of us had heard of diabetes before that. I was the first one in my family to have ever been diagnosed. And in those days, we used glass syringes that we had to boil every morning, and we had those old Clinitest test tubes. I grew up in Northwest Ohio, so I went to Camp Zanika. Anybody who's a Camp Zanika person? Hi. I'm here at Joslin, 50 years, you guys. Anyway, I went as a kid to diabetes summer camp, and that really helped me cope and deal with it, because all of us kids at camp, we went for 2 weeks of sleepaway camp on Lake Erie, and we were normal kids with diabetes. And I went to a camp reunion about 3 years ago, and there we were, 45, 50 years out, and we were still normal middle-aged adults with diabetes. Not too many of us had serious complications. We all seemed to have had neuropathy. That was our common complication in our hands and our feet. But everybody had their eyesight. Nobody was on, only one person was on dialysis, and everybody else had healthy kidneys, healthy eyes. Several of the women had babies. People had jobs. They were retiring. They were vacationing in Florida. It was pretty neat.
So do you have any kind of story you'd like to share about a challenge that you've overcome with diabetes?
I think just living with it as you age and as you change, because it's very different when you're a child and then you grow up to your adolescence and your adulthood. And I often do speakings for diabetes groups, support groups, and I say, children with diabetes grow up to be adults with diabetes. And many of us in this room at this gathering were diagnosed as children. And diabetes hasn't gone away. We still have it, and it changes over time. But yet there's this common thread, and it has to do with being conscious. I find you have to develop a consciousness, an awareness, a self-awareness about what it is to live in a body that has diabetes, and you constantly have to be aware of yourself and how your actions and how you eat and how you live your life have an effect on your overall health. And I think for a lot of us, because type 1, you have to think and act and behave as a pancreas. It's turned on like an internal switch in a lot of us. That's been my coping mechanism, and even with the challenges that I've faced. For me, I've always been a healthy adult. I danced for many years, and I have been a nurse for many years, and my comorbid complication, or my Achilles heel, is actually my right foot. Neuropathy. I was folk dancing, I injured my foot, I didn't feel it, and I was walking around with a fracture, which 4 different doctors misdiagnosed because it was an early, very early Charcot change, but they had never seen it that early. So it was 4 doctors before I finally got somebody who put 2 and 2 together, did some further testing on my foot, and so my foot has been stable, and we've kept it at bay. But that's my one challenge, and that's the only time that diabetes ever stopped me from doing anything in my life. And I had to switch from dancing in like 11 different dance classes a week to doing a quieter form of exercise. So I use Tai Chi, I swim when I can, and I do chair exercises because I can't do the kind of banging on my feet that I used to. My eyes are fine, my kidneys are fine, my heart is fine, and I'm approaching my 60th birthday, and I've had diabetes for 50 years.
What piece of advice would you give to a child who's just been diagnosed with type 1?
Make friends with other people who have diabetes. They become your peers, your allies. Older kids and young adults who have diabetes will become your mentors. Throughout my life with diabetes, I've always had other people around me who have diabetes. As a child, it was my camp friends. As a young adult, once in a while I'd meet somebody who had diabetes, but it's kind of not quite as intense as it was with his kid. And then I was in a young adult support group, ADA, back in the 1970s and 80s. And then I was with young adults who had diabetes, so we have a common thread. Now, as an adult, I'm involved with Diabetes Sisters, which is a national organization, nonprofit out of Raleigh, North Carolina, for women with diabetes. I've gone for their annual meetings for the last 4 years, and I've made wonderful friends with women who are some younger, some older, some the same age as I am, and we have a sisterhood, whether we're type 1, type 2, but we seem to have DDAR. Those of us that have type 1, we find each other. And I have a core of friends right now who are actually healthcare professionals who also have type 1 diabetes, and we form our own pockets of what we need for ourselves. So with a group of my friends, we're having a camp for women, a retreat for women this summer in upstate New York at a place called Pumpkin Hollow Farm, and right now there's about, I think, 20 of us signed up. Most of us have type 1 diabetes for a long period of time, and we're going to have a ladies' weekend in nature with massage and yoga and vegetarian food and all kinds of good things, and we learn from each other. So to kids with diabetes, maybe there'll be a cure, maybe not. To parents who have kids with diabetes, children grow up and become adults with diabetes. And your good habits of what you train your kid. My mother lives next door to me. She's 87 years old. I'm a baby boomer taking care of my mother now. She took care of me when I was a child with diabetes. She doesn't have diabetes, but because she took such good care of me and I've taken such good care of myself, it kind of pays it forward, and it's something that I'm very happy to do, and I'm proud that I'm still here and that my mom is still a part of my life. So